gone to the abandoned base. She was very scared. I can't move it, she said. Just then there was a thump and rumble of thunder to the west. The afternoon storm clouds that had made them hurry down toward the creek, away from the tall trees, were still coming. Tommy closed his eyes, sighed, and lay back on his pack. "Let me see if I can find something to pry it open," she said. She stood up and looked around. They were in a small clearing. The stream bed ran down an east-west gully that wound between two broad hills covered in dense forest. Across the stream and up the other side of the gully was another stand of trees, through which she thought she could see a smokestack and the top of some kind of building. The sky above the hills behind them was darkening fast, and a flicker of lightning gleamed wickedly at her from within coiling clouds. Tommy tried again to get out of the stream, but couldn't manage it. She helped him get his pack all the way off, and then she repositioned his upper body against the opposite bank, the pack under his neck. There was a chunky stick a few feet downstream, which she lifted and then used to beat down all the grass on either side of the creek between the two boys. She found no more traps, although she went no farther than Tommy's backpack. Then the stick broke. She told him not to move, and then retraced her steps up the side of the gully to the edge of the forest, which was about 30 feet back from the creek. Another crack of thunder boomed along the face of the low hills to the west, and the sky seemed to darken again. The forest ahead of her stirred uneasily, as if the trees knew what was coming. She began working a 2-inch thick limb off a pine tree, when she saw a curtain of gray rain sweep down the gully, pursued by another clap of thunder. Her rain gear was rolled up on top of her pack, but she kept working the branch, twisting it back and forth, swearing at it under her breath as it became slippery, and her hands grew sticky with pine pitch. Finally, she got it off, and then ran back to where Tommy was sitting awkwardly on the side of the stream, one hand under him. The pain in his eyes nearly broke her heart. Rip appeared to have fainted again. His chin was down on his chest, but at least he was well out of the water. She took out her camping knife and whittled frantically on the blunt end of the branch, trying to form a wedge point. The rain came down hard and cold, but at least there was no more lightning. And then a single, brilliant blue-white bolt punched out an ear-clenching blast that made her scream and drop the knife in the branch. Her ball cap fell off into the stream. The bolt vaporized the top of a nearby tree, showering the gully with flaming embers and enveloping them in a pungent fog of crackling ozone. A bolus of fire flared briefly at the top of the tree, then disappeared in a new roar of rain. She scrambled around, trying to find her knife. Finally, she saw it in the creek, retrieved it, and went back to hacking at the end of the branch. She glanced over at Tommy, but his eyes were closed, and the rain was running into his partially opened lips. The rain was so heavy she almost couldn't see Rip. When she had the base of the limb cleaned off and shaped into a wedge, she knelt back down by Tommy's leg. She cut the fabric back away from his ankle. She was appalled at the swollen purple mess that had been his lower leg. She didn't know how she would be able to wedge the limb into the space between the snapping arms without hurting him. She looked up at Tommy's face. His eyes were open now. "Just do it," he said, his voice barely audible above the noise of the rain. "Get it off me." She nodded and pushed the wedge end of the 6-foot-long branch between the two steel jaws as close to the hinge joint as she could get. Then she stood up and planted her right foot in the stream, which she noticed was deeper now, coming up to the tops of her boots. She put her left foot on the base plate and then leaned slowly against the branch. Tommy groaned as the trap moved, but the arms did not budge, not 1 inch. She relaxed and then tried again, positioning her hands for maximum leverage. She thought she saw the arms move fractionally, but without her hat, the rain was in her eyes. And then the branch snapped cleanly in two just above the trap, and she went tumbling into the grass below where Tommy was trapped. She swore aloud, and then realized her cheek was touching metal. She gasped, commanding every muscle in her body to freeze. Taking tiny breaths of air, she tried to see through the individual blades of wet grass. "What's the matter?" Tommy called through the rain. "There's another one. Wait a minute." She finally mustered the courage to push some of the high grass aside. Her head was on the base plate, her cheek actually touching one of the snapping arms, but not the trigger, a flat, spoon-shaped piece of metal between.